This project that we had spent all this time and all this money on as a reel builder was now gone. So it was just like, I remember that conversation too. We're just like, oh, I guess that's it.
That's it.
I mean,
what can you do? We're rolling.
Better start rolling now because
Ready? I'm going to do it.
Morgan's got some tricks going on here. Yep. Nope.
Over-rotated. Under-rotated.
Ooh, close.
Can't start until this happens.
Oh, we should already start. This should be part of it.
Oh, it's rolling.
You got. I feel good about this next one.
All right, one more.
Yeah.
Okay, let's start.
All right.
Hi.
Podcast 3, number 3.
Mm-hmm.
Rule of threes.
Yep. This one, another music video.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Another music video.
This was technically before
Yep.
Take Me Away.
That's right. So yeah, on the last podcast we talked about Take Me Away, which is by a band called Lone Wolf.
Mm-hmm.
That was a fun one. Learned a lot. This one was before that. Not far before it. Not long before it.
No, and the stories kind of interplay together a little bit.
Yes, they do, and we'll get to that.
Yeah, this was like the first video that we did fully on Spec, like just trying to do something creative, something new, something. Again, this was like a portfolio builder, just like the other one, but this one we did for free.
Right. Yeah. So a little bit of backstory on how we decided to do this project. Like you said, we were looking for something creative to do. We wanted to. I think we had just bought a camera. We had just bought like the Blackmagic camera and some other equipment, maybe some lighting or something. So we were just like itching to use it and to be creative and to have fun with it. So he's like my brother-in-law, but at the time this guy was dating my wife's sister. So I met him through that relationship and found out that he's a songwriter. He's a songwriter, producer, makes like pop, kind of like dark pop.
Mm-hmm.
What would you call it?
It's like alternative pop, indie kind of music.
Yeah, like really good music.
Yeah, he's
like
super talented.
Really talented, well-produced music, and just like really well-written songs. So heard his music and I think showed it to you or something, and we talked about it, and we're like, man, this is really good. This could be great music for some visuals to add along to it. He had already actually done a couple of music videos that were cool. They're like low budget things. But we're like, this could be a cool opportunity just to be creative and, try out this new equipment that we had, learn some more lessons, all that good stuff. So reached out to him and he was stoked on the idea. And I think originally there was like one song we had heard on a Spotify channel that were like, that's the one, like that would be really cool to do. And I think he already had a music video for it, or he just wasn't like, that wasn't the one that he wanted to promote as much. Mm-hmm. So I think he decided on his new single, the song called Is This Real? Mm-hmm. And that's the one we ended up shooting a music video for.
Yep.
Yeah, and like you said, we did the whole thing on Spec. So we not only did we do it for free, we paid to have it done. So the materials that it cost for us to build the set, because there was a set involved, the crew members that were there, just everything that it took to put together this 3-day production, we bankrolled it. I mean, it was just something that we wanted to do, so we came out of pocket for it. So yeah, I guess to go back to like the concept, we'll start there. We knew the song. We had a chance to just like meet with the artist's name is Gamby, by the way. I don't think we've said that yet. Maybe we have. I'm not sure. His name is Gamby. And so we talked to him just to kind of like get a better feel for any ideas he might have had for the song. And he had told us through that that he's dealt with like sleep paralysis his whole life pretty much. So like sleep paralysis, for anybody who doesn't know, it's when you're falling asleep, your body is technically asleep, but your mind is still awake, and your mind starts to play some tricks on you. And, a lot of people kind of see the same things during sleep paralysis. So say you're sleeping on your back, a lot of the times people will see like a dark figure in their room, which is terrifying, or they'll feel a presence around them, or even like a dark figure like sitting on your chest, like holding you down. So it's a really terrifying experience. And he was telling us the story of those experiences that he's had his whole life. And obviously the song is called Is This Real? So it lends itself well to a more of a dream narrative, which is honestly, it's very on the nose. I think we had talked about, if I remember correctly, we had talked about some other concepts that weren't quite so on the nose, you know, because you want there to be some subtext. You don't necessarily want to, you know, the music video to be exactly what the song is talking about.
Right.
Not that it even is, but it's very close, you know. So we threw some other concepts around, and we ended up just landing on more of like I said, on the nose approach. So the concept really is it's a dream concept, which is funny because I remember when we were talking about doing it, like the whole dream thing it's a pretty big cop out for like storytelling, because anything can happen, and then at the end you realize it's a dream.
Right.
You know, it's like it's kind of a trope that's been played out quite a bit, especially in music videos. Like he wakes up at the end and it was all a dream, you know. But so we talked a lot about that, and we were weary of it, but we knew at the very least we didn't want him to like just wake up at the end and for it to be all a dream. So we decided to weave in another kind of like subplot into it, where he's awake and he's just dealing with this like sleep paralysis or seeing things. And so that's kind of the concept, and it was a 3-day production. And we can talk a little bit about each day of production and then how it all came together.
Yeah.
So,
yeah, we started, where did we start?
I think we started at your apartment.
Okay. Yeah.
At 1836.
Yep. Yeah, we had, I had a small apartment. It was like 600 square feet on the second floor in downtown Sarasota, which it lent itself well to what we were trying to do. Just had some cool looks to be able to shoot in. And so we knew we needed to light it. We needed to figure out like how to light it. We didn't have any equipment that could get to, you know, we didn't have Mambo stands or anything like that could actually get up through the windows of the second floor. So, and we didn't ask the landlord or anything. We were just winging it. We're like, well, we're going to shoot it at night, and we're going to have a bunch of lights outside, and hopefully it doesn't get shut down.
Yeah.
And I remember like climbing out the second the window of the apartment, climbing into the tree and trying to rig like, you know, little 60-watt lights outside to try to like push light through. Yeah,
because at the time all we had were those Godox.
Yeah.
The 60-watt Godox LEDs.
Yeah.
We had like 2 or 3 of them.
Yeah.
So it's not a lot, and it's not a lot to try to punch light through a window to create ambience in an interior. It's really not a lot.
Yeah.
So thankfully it was at night, and it was supposed to be at night. But we actually came out, we pre-lit that too. We came out a day or two before because we lived there.
Yep.
I was right across the hall. It's like everything was right there. So it's like, all right, let's just see if this is going to work. So we don't always do that. But if you have the opportunity to get into a space, not only just to scout it, but also to light it at the time of day to mimic what it's going to be like on the shoot, it's super helpful. Yeah. Because we learned, you know, things don't always work the way you think they're going to. So you might as well make those mistakes when the pressure is not on, when you're just there, you know, and the crew's not there, the talent's not there. So we had that opportunity to just go in and light it like a few days before. I can't remember exactly. Yep. Which was a big help. Yeah. That way on the day we showed up, we knew exactly what to do. Showed up, I mean, we rolled out of bed.
Yeah. We're already there.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, we shot in that space, we shot mostly performance. Yeah. And it was just him in the bed, at the edge of the bed. Same kind of thing as the last music video we talked about. We did everything at 2x speed so we could slow it down. And we just kind of wanted to make it a little bit surreal. So the color palette of the lights, they were all gelled and had, you know, like, I think it was like purple and like teal and purple or something. Yeah, leaning more into like a more neon kind of color palette. But a lot of blues and purples. Yeah, we bought like the lava lamp. And then I had, at the time, like this really fluffy white cat.
Iverson.
And, yeah. And so we were like, well, fuck it. Let's just throw him in here. So he's in the shot somewhere. But yeah, most of it was just performance of him sitting on the bed. I remember we like hazed the whole place up.
Yeah.
Which was also sketchy because it's like coming out the door and into the hallway and probably into other people's apartments.
For sure.
But, and then we had that was performance, ton of that stuff. And then I think there was a little bit of like, there's a little bit of narrative. I don't remember if we used that of him kind of.
We did, yeah.
We did, right?
Yeah, at the very end of the video, he just pretty much gets off his bed, walks over to a chair, sits down, and just kind of like...
Yeah, that's right.
Like sighs. Like,
yeah.
Like I can't sleep again or whatever that was supposed to be.
So the song, it was after the song ended. So you're just seeing like the ambient of him essentially. This was him waking up essentially.
Right.
Instead of like a top-down shot of his eyes opening, we figured we would have one where like he's getting out of bed and sits down. And you just hear like sirens in the background, and
yeah, it was like our attempt at just making it a little less tropey.
Yeah,
it was like we don't want to do that.
Yeah,
you know, the eyes opening.
Right.
Yeah.
It was like as tasteful as it could have been, I think, for like what we had to work with, and I actually kind of liked that ending.
Yeah,
it's good.
Yeah, it was cool. It was just fun shooting there too. Yeah, because like I don't know, when you live somewhere, especially if you're a filmmaker, like you always think about like, oh, imagine shooting here. Like you can't help but think about it. Like you see the light coming through your window or something, you know.
Yep.
And you just can't help but think like, I wonder what it looked like shooting in my home, you know, where I live. So it was cool to get to do that.
Yeah.
Because I mean, our apartments are literally identical too. They're across the hall from each other, and they're just like mirror images of each other.
Yep.
So it was cool to do that. But yeah, I think a thing that really helped the overall look of those shots was just the fact that we did go out and mount lights to those trees and be able to punch light in. You know, that goes a long way, because one, there wasn't really enough space in the apartment to do any kind of like proper lighting in there.
Right.
Like an EC stand would be seen because it's just not enough space. It's like 600 square feet. So we kind of had to do that, but also it just helps. I don't know, it just creates a cool ambience, you know?
Yeah.
It was a cool way of going about it. So we did that, I think, day one.
Yeah.
Day two, we were back in a big warehouse that had no AC, and I'm pretty sure this was in the summer again too. So so yeah, for that second day, it was more performance. So we actually had another day of performance shots. And in this setting, it was kind of like the abstract, like alter ego, you know, possibly the figure that is seen when you are experiencing sleep paralysis character. You know, it's like he was wearing like this red jumpsuit, and he was performing. We did like a direct to camera performance, same thing. We did it regular speed, 2x speed, so we can slow it down.
And then with the camcorder as well.
Yeah, and we also, that's right.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I have this old like Canon camcorder that I think my wife got it from her dad, who's a realtor. So this is like back in the day, like back in the 90s when, you know, realtors needed a camera and they didn't have one on their phone. Yep. So it's just a little, you know, like point and shoot.
Yep.
Camcorder, which we've used a lot since. That might have been the first time we used it on a shoot, but we just like that aesthetic. I mean, it gives you a different texture to work with.
Yeah, it's nice to cut in because we were shooting on the Vasins again, so we were shooting anamorphic. So it's like it's not a sharp look necessarily. Like you have the anamorphic look, but it's a very like high production look. You know, like you're getting like that anamorphic look, which is really nice. But to be able to cut in like these camcorder shots that are 4x3 and just kind of have like these textures and this sort of ugliness to it, where you're having a lot of shake and these optical zooms in there. Like it helps cut the look up a little bit. You know what I mean?
Right.
Like changes the texture, gives you a little bit of like energy.
Yeah. I think I was just shooting on that thing while you were shooting like the proper takes with the camera. So I was just sitting there, just getting little movements and zooming in and out. Yeah. And we talked about this last time too, but it's like, it's thinking through the edit, right? I mean, it's having as much as at your disposal when you're in post to be able to insert a little bit of, even just to change it up, you know, just to give you a break. and to add some energy to these shots, because it was performance. You know, it was a one person performing to camera, but still you have to have that energy somehow. So
and with that, it was super simple lighting setup. Like I think we just had a softbox like top down overhead, and it just fell to black because it was a huge space. Like it was whatever 30,000 square foot warehouse, empty. And so we just literally like boomed a C-stand over him, and it was just like a softbox top down. And it like sometimes it's all you need. Like you just need one light to be able to like light him and just let everything fall to black, you know, especially with this, because it was like he was kind of in this abyss. Like it felt like he was in this dream. You didn't want to see what was around him. Yeah,
and actually that warehouse and that lighting setup were the exact same location and lighting setup that we used for Lone Wolf's first music video. When we were in that warehouse, it was the same warehouse, and we did the exact same thing. It was just a top down 5600 Godox with a softbox, and that was it. You know, and the rest just kind of falls to black, which is nice.
I think it was on the day in there happened to be in like the corner of the warehouse, there was like a scaffolding.
That's right. Yeah.
We saw the scaffolding and we're like, well, that'd be kind of cool. Like, what if we got like this wide shot, you know, of him just doing weird shit? Like we kind of made it up on the day a little bit. And so it was like this, it was probably 3 layers of scaffolding. So we're probably like 15, 20 feet. And then we just mounted the camera on tripod and kind of backlit it with this hard light, and he was just kind of walking in and out of the light that was casting this huge shadow.
Right.
I actually really liked those shots. It was super simple.
Yeah.
But it worked really well.
And that was, I think when we went into it, the goal was to have this big shadow.
Yeah.
I think I remember that being a big thing. Like we wanted to make sure he casted a shadow. You know, obviously to play into the whole sleep paralysis and the shadow figures in your room, you know, those kind of things. So having that shadow interplay was really cool.
Yeah.
We had to have mounted another light for that though.
Yeah, I think we mounted, I can't remember what light it was, but it was a hard light. Like we just put a ladder up. I think we mounted him on the rafters up there or on one of the beams and just like backlit him. That was it. It was just like a really hard backlight that casted this like, you know, 20-foot shadow. Yeah. And he was basically just like walking in and out of it, dancing, crawling. We did everything.
Right. Yeah. Which is cool because from that angle too, it's just like a concrete floor and then this red figure. Yeah. You know, and then a big shadow. Yeah. So it was kind of like a noir style shot, you know, sequence that worked out really well. And we used a lot of it in the actual final cut. So, and I think on that day what was our crew like on that day? It might've just been you and I for that day.
It was small. Well, someone was pulling focus.
Okay.
So we might've had a focus puller, and then we had someone. No, I think it was just the 3 of us.
Yeah. I think so too. Because really I know on the Lone Wolf one in that warehouse, we had a bit bigger of a crew because we had like hair and makeup because Chino needed to look all beat up and stuff. Yeah. So yeah, I think on the Gamby for that location was pretty skeleton crew. Like it was just a few of us, and it was hot, and there was no AC. We were sweaty, like always. But the cool thing is, day 3, we ended up in studio. Yep. So back into the AC, which is nice.
Yep. Same studio as the Lone Wolf Take Me Away performance stuff.
Right. Yep. And this time, this is where we went. We were a little extra because, you know, we had never worked with sets before. We had never built them or even shot in like a set, you know, a set home or whatever in a studio. So at the time, the studio that we shot this in didn't have any set pieces. I think they do now, but there was no, you know, like set walls or anything. So we built them. We built I guess it would have been like a 3-sided set.
Yeah. So it was essentially 4x8 walls. We'd had 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. We had to put a door in 2 of them.
Right. Yeah.
So it was like, it was an open face room basically. And then on the left and right side were doors, and we built them from scratch. Like we just went to my dad's house and put them all together and framed them out and set them up.
And painted them. Yep. And there was a window too.
There was a window
in the back wall so that we can punch light through.
That's right.
Yeah.
Put one window in.
Yeah, that was cool. I mean, that was just like the whole idea there, in which you see in the final edit too, is that was strategic because we knew that we wanted to do this kind of like keyframing in and out of shots. So, on the day, I'll give a little bit more, background on what exactly it was supposed to be, right? So this set is supposed to be his dream world, right? He's walking through these doors, which lead to the same place, which is the same room, but everything changes colors. So it's like this weird, like off-putting, like when you're in a dream, like things are very, it's like they're very normal until they're not. There's like usually something about it that you're like, that either triggers you to be lucid or you just kind of like in your dream, like, that's odd,
Yeah.
So the whole idea was as he walks through the door from one room into another, which is really just back into the same room, we keyframe and we cut to the next color palette,
Right.
which means that all the props in that room, like there was like we hung paintings on the walls and there was like these random like styrofoam heads, I think, just weird stuff.
Yep.
All of that stuff would change colors as he would go through, and his outfit would change with it as well. So it went from like green, I think it went from like blue to green to yellow or something.
Yep.
And it was, so we knew. So again, back to the set, having the set walls, that really allows you to have a clean like keyframe point in the edit, because it covers your entire frame. And it's straight, it's really easy to keyframe that out. So the camera was trucking left to right, and it would start on the outside of the set and move into the set, and that was our end point.
Yeah, we basically made a big, across the entire front of the set, the open face part, we built a big dolly track that spanned from one side to the other. So that way we would have our wide shot and you'd have a really smooth shot. So you're just basically pushing, and you push all the way out to the other side. So you can keep keyframing. You can keep moving through rooms
and masking
seamlessly.
Right.
Yeah.
And that's really important too, is having that shot be really steady.
Yeah.
So it has to be steady because, I mean, it doesn't have to be. Technically, it could have been handheld and keyframe out, but it just makes things a lot more difficult.
Yeah.
Because you want your horizon line and anything, any vertical line to be, especially if that's what the camera's passing, you want that to be, straight.
Right.
And to stay the same each and every time. So having that track ensures that it's going to stay the same every single time.
Yeah. So when we built the track, it was like nobody could touch that track. Like if it got kicked a little bit or moved a little bit, like that was it. Like we had to have that exact same path every single time.
Right.
And like you said, you don't have to. I mean, there's ways to fix that, but it makes it a hell of a lot easier when like you just have the exact same tracking path through all of that. So when it keyframes, you just cut the edge of that where it cuts to black, where the set ends, and then you push the other one next to it.
Right. Yeah. And even the camera, like on the fluid head too, that can't change either.
Yep.
Because if it tilts down a little bit or up a little bit, it changes things.
Yep.
Like it changes your perspective of what the camera is seeing of the set.
Right.
So, and I'm sure that got changed a little bit, because it's just almost impossible to keep that perfectly locked down when you got people walking around a studio. But yeah, it ended up working out pretty cool. And so the way we did the props too, we had both of our wives were there. We had, I think Gamby's girlfriend was there, who's now, that's my wife's sister. And I think we had a few other people, just more hands, because we just knew it was going to be a very tedious shoot with all the props that needed to be spray painted
Every time.
So we would finish with one color. We'd shoot the whole thing with one color. And it wasn't just him walking in. It was like him walking in, him interacting with like a banana or whatever,
Right.
and then like looking through a telescope and all these things that he's doing. We'd have to do that for every color. So we'd finish one color. And then, all right, guys, it's time to paint it. So we'd literally take everything off the walls, every single set piece. Well, not every set piece, but all the stuff that, the little props and stuff. Take all that stuff off the walls, go outside, and we just had like, everyone was just spray painting stuff.
Yep.
All right, we're going to yellow. Spray paint everything yellow.
Yep.
And we did that like 3 times, I guess it would have been.
Yeah.
So that was a lot of work. It was fun though.
Yeah, it was. And the in the set there was obviously a bunch of pieces everywhere, but there was always one piece in the center. So I think one of them was like a red phone.
Mm-hmm.
It was like a red dial phone that he like picked up, you know. Then the other one, I think we spray painted a banana blue.
Yeah.
You know, like, and then the yellow, we spray painted a telescope yellow.
That's
and
right.
So there was always like a centerpiece in each set that he would kind of interact with.
Right.
Yeah, it was super fun. It was like just such a, they can be tropey, those types of music videos, but like, they're also really fun because you can do whatever the fuck you want.
Yeah.
Like, there's no rules to this anymore. Like, let's just spray paint banana blue.
Yeah.
You can just like pick it up.
Yeah, you play the dream card.
Yeah,
Like,
exactly.
anything can happen in a dream.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was fun, man. That was a really fun shoot. Let's talk about lighting, because I know it was tough. It was our first time lighting a set,
Mm-hmm.
and I know we punched light through that back window, and
Yeah.
wanted to make sure that it wasn't too high key,
Mm-hmm.
so that you couldn't see that it's a set and that there's like seam lines and stuff. So
Yeah.
how did you approach as DP on that project? Do you remember how you approached lighting?
Yeah, I think it was tough because we didn't have a lot of time, and there was a ton of moving parts, like you said, like the props and things like that. So you kind of had to light for the space because we were doing these big wides that were trucking left to right, but then we would go in tight and get a lot of details and, you know, handheld of him interacting with a lot of these things. So as far as lighting changes, we knew it was going to be a long day already. So you kind of had to light for the wides and then try to supplement as much as you could going in tight. So I think we punched hard light through the window. We changed that color. Every time the set would change, we would change that color that was coming through the window. And then up above that, so there was a grid above the studio, and I think it was just all 5600 soft sources.
Mm-hmm.
So like we had them pointing towards each door, and then I think we had a couple more that were just sort of giving ambience to the space, trying to backlight as much as we could to try to give shadow on the front end. But it was one of those shoots where like you kind of have to light it once for your wide and then just do the best you can going in tight, which is just like, you know, bringing in like a little soft source or something, trying to
Maybe some
or
neg.
a tube or something, you
Yeah.
know, like, just something to kind of make it a little prettier.
Right.
But yeah, it was a pretty simple setup, honestly. It wasn't, I think this was one of those situations where like we built the set, we got the props, we put everything in, like we were doing like so many other things that like when it came to lighting, it's like we couldn't actually figure out. This was one of those situations you can't pre-light, you know, because the set's not there, you know,
Right.
It's not just sitting there waiting for you. So we were figuring out lighting on the day, and it was basically just like trying to tweak it until it looked good enough for those wides,
Right.
you know, and then just letting it roll for the most part.
Yeah, and I think it turned out good. I mean, that's the reason I even asked too, because I know like most of it were those wides.
Mm-hmm.
Like those were our primary, like, you know, kind of the most important shots. And lighting for wide and lighting for tights, you know, unless you're in a large space or something, it's, you know, it's not ideal. It's like you want to choose one and lean into that. And we do err on the side of trying to backlight as much as possible. Weren't really able to on that, you know. It was top lit.
Yeah.
But I think it still worked out really well.
Yeah.
And you know, it's funny too. So years later, we did another project on Spec. We won't get into the details about it. I'm sure we'll do a full podcast on it, because there's a lot about that project that went well and didn't go well. But we actually shot it in the same studio, different set pieces, but in a set room. So it was very similar. It was like similar size, but this is a couple years later.
Yeah.
And seeing the difference in just even like your skills as a DP in lighting, like between that and the project that we did years later, is insane. Like
Yeah.
that project, and it's funny because no one's ever seen it. It's still, I guess it's still in post-production, but it looks so good. Like the set looks so amazing. Like just the lighting setup, like it just goes to show like how much you grow in, you know, and I think it was 2 years.
Yeah.
So it was just cool to see, because
Yeah.
it was like very similar. It was the exact exact same scenario, really.
Yep.
We needed wides, we needed tight shots,
Yep.
and so yeah, it was just interesting to see. So we'll talk about that project, I'm sure, at some point. But
a lot of the, and going into lighting a project, it's like if you can, and this is like the cinematographer's dream, really, is basically just a bunch of medium and tight shots,
right.
Because like with your tight shots, like you can come in, you can push lights closer, you have so much room, right? Like the camera's only seeing a small portion of the set. So with that, you can throw C-stands everywhere, you can pull neg in, you can make it look exactly how you want with your ratios. And the hardest part of lighting is always the wide. It's always the wide. It's like, it's the thing that you're seeing so much of the space that like you have no room to put C-stands, lights, like you have to hide them up in places or whatever. Like it's always really tricky, which is why like in, movies or whatever, like they'll introduce the scene with a wide. And if you pay close attention, it's like the figures are, if they're against a window, they're mostly silhouetted, they're exposing for the window outside. And then when you come in close, like everyone looks beautiful and they're perfectly Rembrandt and like the light wraps around really nicely. And so with your wides, you're at the mercy of your space, really,
right.
So getting the wides right and getting those done and over with is like that. That's always like the cinematographer's nightmare. It's like the wider the shot, the harder it is. So
yeah.
It is tricky. It's really tricky. And I remember really struggling with that when we were setting up for Is This Real for Gamby's shoot, and going back to that other piece that still hasn't seen the light of day. Just having more tools, like understanding how to execute better and how to prepare for, there were things that, thinking back on Gamby's shoot, like I could have prepared for going in tight. Like I didn't have those tools yet. Like I hadn't learned how to do that, like how to have these things on standby to know like, hey, we're going to push in tight, just bring this, and this, we're going to bring it in close. And in 3 minutes, you can have a really beautiful tight shot.
Yeah.
And understanding that's a huge part of planning as like a cinematographer, is just like understanding the shots you're going to get and how you can quickly execute those shots, because it doesn't take long. Like if you have practice and you know what you're doing, like it doesn't take very long to get your tight shots looking beautiful, So if you can strategically plan your day out like that, then you can get a really good product. You can have something really beautiful that you're proud of at the end of the day. And that was something that, we hadn't been around doing it long enough to know, how to prep for that properly.
Yeah, no, I think, all things considered, it turned out really good. And lighting's a beast, and that is really, so much of it comes down to lighting.
Yeah.
Obviously, framing up shots and all, everything's important, but lighting will make or break, your image. So, I just thought that was interesting.
And it's just, it's something that I don't think ever gets enough credit. It's like, as a cinematographer or a camera op, like you said, like the composition's important, but really like you're painting the image with the light. Like you can tell a completely different story by wrapping the light behind them or in front of them. Like that tells a different story than shooting like a high key piece, Right. You're throwing a completely different paint on that canvas to tell a completely different story. And it's so, the devil's in the details with those things too. It's like so marginal. And that's why good cinematographers get paid what they get paid to shoot Dune or whatever. It's like,
right.
They understand like the 1% differences that are really going to change that image and make it look the way it needs to look. And then consistently across scenes as well.
Right. And a lot of that comes down to ratios, right?
Mm-hmm.
You're always thinking through ratios, from light to dark, your fall off and your highlights, all that stuff, right? So what's like the biggest, I guess what is like your guiding light for knowing what ratio you're after? Is it just like depending on false color? Is it your eye at this point? Like what do you think is a good way of trying to dial in your ratio?
That's a good question. I mean, it depends on the ratio you want. Like, you obviously have to, and my ratio, when I talk about ratios, it's like, you used to use a light meter, you know, and the light meter would tell you exactly what your ratio is. And now I use false color, which is basically just, it's on the monitor. It's a feature on the monitor that basically washes color over the whole image. And there's a key on the side that tells you how hot those colors are. So all the way from red and yellow down to your dark blues and purples being your darkest parts of the image, or the parts of the image that's lost, that has no information.
It's almost like looking at like a heat map.
Yeah.
You know, like a forecast heat map or something.
Yeah. Every time I turn it on and the client sees it, they're like, what did you do? What is this? But yeah, it's you're lighting the ratio between, so for a subject's face, right? It's like you're looking for the ratio between the brightest part of their face and the darkest part of their face. And you're trying to judge that, but you're also looking at the ratio of the room beyond that. So you're looking at the ambience of the room, like, and where your highlights and shadows live inside of the room. And you'll notice, like, if someone's sitting at a kitchen table, you know, and it's a low key sort of setup, on the shadow side of their face, a lot of times cinematographers will place light in the background behind them. So you're basically what's called like salt and pepper. So you're looking at the frame as a whole. And as you go across the frame from left to right, you should be seeing like dark, light. So you're creating patterns essentially. And what that's doing is it's, you know, maybe you're casting like a shadow of a tree, you know, like, so you're getting texture on the back wall or through a window, and you're seeing the pane of the window. And where that's placed is really important because it tells you what to look at in the image and how that character pops out of that image, which is really the complicated part of lighting. Like that's where it gets so granular, you know.
But that's what creates the depth in your frame and the interest in your frame too. And like you said, it gives you a focal point. You know, it draws your attention into something, whatever that something is. It draws your attention. So like lighting, so much of lighting helps with storytelling. Yeah. You know, and it's really easy to, I guess, just leave that out of the whole like storytelling process. Right. Like lighting and composition go a long way in telling a story without using any words. Yeah. Which is really cool.
Yeah. And a lot of times it's, you know, it's what you don't see, you know, especially in like horror films and things like that. Like it's what you're not seeing that's creating the mood or the energy that like the cinematographer, the filmmaker wants you to feel. You know, it's like in these horror films, it's like a lot of times you're not seeing much of anything, you know? And I think that's why, like, and this isn't a horror film, but like Arrival, right? Like Arrival, the movie Arrival was like all about these unknown aliens and things. So like they shot it in a way that was just like, it's one of the darkest films ever. Like Bradford Young was a cinematographer, and he's known for being able to achieve stupid levels of darkness while also having a beautiful image, which is one of the most difficult things to do, in my opinion.
And it takes balls.
It takes a lot of balls because, you know, like watching interviews with him and stuff, like he's like, you're looking at the monitor and you don't see anything, but he knows, because he understands his ratios so well, he knows that information is there, and he knows what it's going to look like afterwards. And that just comes with like a lot of time and probably a lot of mistakes, you know, from the past. But that's what creates, like you said, that's what tells that story from a lighting perspective. It's what you don't see, you know. It's really, really amazing.
Yeah. Yeah. It's really cool. Really interesting. So back to the shoot. That was day 3 in studio, dream sequence with the set. Shot all that. Everything went well. I remember at the end of the day, the last kind of scene that we had to shoot was a hallway. So we didn't build a hallway. We built these set pieces for a room and repurposed those set pieces to be a hallway, you know? So I think we took walls off. I don't think we built any extras. I think we took like the 2 side walls off to create the other wall of a hallway. And we just literally brought it behind the set so that so you had the back wall of the original set with the window. And then we had like this newly, like constructed piece of set for the left side of the frame for that wall. And the idea there was that Gamby, now he's in green, and he's walking down this hallway, and the hallway is coming in towards him. So it's kind of like collapsing in on him,
right.
slowly gonna, just squish him. So I was like, how do you do that? Well, we had a bunch of people there. We had these set walls that were, I think they were just on they were on wooden stands.
Yep.
So we had to figure out, all right, how are we going to move these two set walls in as Gamby walks towards camera? So we used manpower. We had a bunch of people there. I think we had one person per panel on the outsides of the set.
And meanwhile, these panels were made, there was dog shit.
They were made by us.
Yeah, they were so bad. They were super flimsy. They weren't structurally sound.
No.
So they're falling apart as we're shooting, the scenes inside of the rooms,
right.
they're not structurally sound pieces. So we're trying to push these in.
And they were two pieces each. So and they were just connected by, I think, some wood on the back with a couple of screws in it, and then drywall tape that was painted over.
Yep.
So very flimsy and not connected to each other very well.
Yep.
So we had to just make sure that the challenge there was just making sure that each person was pushing at the exact same speed. Because if someone sped up, that panel would just, it would snap off, rip apart. You'd see the seam, and we wanted them to look like walls. So we did that a bunch of times, and it was fun though, because we just had the crew, my wife was back there pushing on the set piece, and
to complicate it more, we also had flower petals falling.
Oh, that's right. Yeah.
While he's walking through here, we needed the petals to fall.
I forgot about that.
Yeah.
Yes, that's right.
So we also had to time that out. While the set pieces that were falling apart were closing in on him, we also had someone just throwing flower petals over the wall to try to fall down while he's running through there.
Which I remember, that was an idea that was actually stolen from one of your band's music videos.
Yeah.
From one of the Colors music videos.
Yep.
It was having these in slow-mo, having these flower petals falling down.
Yep.
Which is cool. But yeah, it's one more thing to have to time out perfectly.
Yep.
It's we already have these walls coming in, and people are sweating back there, pushing them together.
Yep.
And let's throw some flower petals into the mix too, which is difficult.
Yes.
It's difficult to cover your frame adequately with flower petals, because we've tried it since, and it's always hard.
Yeah.
You need way more than you think you're going to need, and you need 3 or 4 people throwing them.
Yep.
Because you don't think it's that big of a deal. You look at the lens, oh, that lens is small. It's probably, what's the field of view? And it's be easy to fill that up with, falling flower petals.
Yep.
It's not. You need people throwing them from all directions. And eventually we got 2 or 3 seconds of it that looked good.
Yep.
Out of all of it. And we did probably 5 or 6 takes of that.
Yep.
And by the way, after each take, you got to clean up the flower petals and put them back in the bag or whatever, and then do it all again. So out of all that, we had a few usable seconds of that.
Yeah.
Which was cool. I'm glad we did it.
Yeah.
But it just added such a headache to that part of the shoot.
Oh yeah. Yeah. Trying to figure out how to light it and all that stuff. It was such a, this is on hour 15 of the day or whatever. So everyone's tired. And we're just trying to figure out okay, we got to push these walls in and make these flowers fall. And everyone's just exhausted. Everyone's just okay, let's just get this done. But it turned out really cool.
Yeah, I think so too, man. I'm glad we did it. So yeah, overall production went really well.
Yeah.
We learned a lot, as we always do. But it was fun. It was just fun to try something new and to work with set pieces and, do all those things. Then let's go ahead and fast forward so that, production is over. We got we're in post-production now, editing this thing. Morgan's editing it, as he does most of our projects. And we had the edit, at a good place. I feel like we had a really good first draft, but there was still a lot to tweak. We had a good, solid first draft.
Yep.
And we were pretty stoked on it. We're cool, it came together, it worked. Yep. And, it was good. I get a call from Morgan. I get a call from you. And you were just dude, you're not going to believe this. My computer and all that footage got stolen.
Yep.
We have none of it. So my thought first goes to, okay, well, we have probably a backup somewhere. Do we still have them on the cards? Do we have, some redundant backup somewhere? No, it was all
It's gone.
all gone. And the export, the draft, like it wasn't a high res export. It was an MP4 compressed. It was just something that we were gonna look at for the next couple days and take notes on.
Yep.
Just something to have some progress to look at. And it was all gone.
Yep. Yep. Yeah, we had, so at the time, so we had just moved to the Blackmagic, so we were shooting RAW. I was on like a 2016 MacBook Pro. Had everything on an external hard drive. And it was like one of those, like you can't play back. Like my computer just wasn't powerful enough. So the edit was like pretty tough, like you're trying to put this edit together without actually being able to play it back. So the whole thing was freezing up, whatever. So it took way longer than a normal edit would. Like we had been working on it for quite a while at this point, and we were getting ready to go shoot Lone Wolf's Take Me Away music video. So that had come up. So I went down to this pretty sketchy part of Sarasota because I needed to pick up an old TV. And I go in there, it's like these like abandoned looking warehouses basically.
And the old TV you were picking up was for the Take Me Away shoot. It was a prop.
Yeah, it was a prop for Take Me Away. At the time, this was like right after work. I had my computer in the back seat of the car. I get out, I go meet the guy. There's like a bunch of kind of random sort of seedy looking characters around there that like as I pull in, they're all staring at me. I go into this guy's shop, talk to him for a while, get the TV, put it in, go home. No big deal. Cool. Go to work on the project the next day. Can't find the MacBook. I'm like, what the fuck did I do with that? Like I looked at the office, I look in my car, I'm looking in the house. I'm like, I can't find this thing. I'm like, it'll show up. It's around here somewhere. It's gotta be. Next day, nothing. Next day, nothing. So finally, and this is like over the weekend, I think. So I call you on Monday and I'm like, hey, this is gone. And so I go back to that place, talk to the manager of whatever like complex I was in. He's like, oh no, none of my guys would ever do this. None of my guys would do this. No. I'm like, this is the last place I had it. And everyone was staring at me. And I left my back, like that's the last place I remember it being. And it was the hard drive and the computer. So we called it I don't even remember how we released the video because we still released it without finishing it. We used, right? Didn't we just use whatever draft we had?
I think so, yeah. I think whatever that first draft that we had, the MP4, that is what got released.
Yeah.
Because we just didn't have, it was gone.
That was it.
So we just had to cut our losses. You know, this project that we had spent all this time and all this money on as a real builder was now gone.
Yep.
So it was just like, I remember that conversation too. We're just like, oh, I guess that's it.
That's it.
I mean,
what can you do?
Yeah. It's like you can hold on to hope, but the chances of getting that thing back are pretty slim.
So I got another computer and we went on, made Take Me Away. A few months goes by. Mm-hmm. At this point, like that's all gone. Like I'm not even thinking about it anymore. It's like we've moved on and just cut our losses.
And I think we had other footage on that hard drive too.
Oh yeah.
It wasn't just Gamby's video.
Yeah.
Like we lost a lot on that hard drive.
Yeah.
So we just had to kiss it all goodbye.
Yep.
Like, right,
that was it.
Move on.
Yep.
Onwards and upwards.
Yep. I don't know. It must have been 3 months later. I get a random phone call. It's like, hey, I think I have your computer. I'm like, you gotta be fucking kidding me. He's like, yeah, I found it on my boat. So in Sarasota, we live on the bay, and there's like a place called Marina Jacks where you can basically park your boat. So a lot of sailboats are out there. People live on them, whatever. So I meet up with this guy. I'm like, there's no way this is real. Like, I can't believe this. So meet up with a guy. He's like, yeah, I have a boat out on Marina Jacks. He just sits there, and I went to go clean it, and I just found your laptop on there. Apparently there was a guy that was just squatting on my boat, and it was one of the guys from that warehouse, because I remember talking to the manager, And I was like, because there was a guy on a bike that pulled up as I was pulling up. And I asked him about that guy, and he was like, oh, no, that's Steve or whatever. He lives on a boat. Like, he doesn't need it. And I'm like, this fucker. He took the laptop and just had it on a boat that he was squatting on for like 3 months. It had like Band-Aids all over it. It was so disgusting, but we got it all back.
And the hard drive too, right?
The hard drive was with it.
Yeah.
It was all still working. It was all there. We got it back 3 months later.
Dude, that is so crazy, man. I can't believe you got that computer back.
I know.
You just kissed that thing goodbye. Like, that's it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, crazy how life works, man. And then, so we got that back, and now we had all that footage. We had the raw footage.
Mm-hmm.
So I think, didn't you recut it? Or at least you did another export or something.
Yeah.
But now we had the raw footage that we could use for a reel and stuff and go back in and recolor or whatever.
Yep.
Which was awesome. I mean, got it back.
Dude, that was so nuts. That was so ridiculous. 'Cause we were just started the business. We were like just trying to, like you said, build the reel. Like we were trying to make a portfolio to be able to actually get more work, you know.
Put our last dollar into this production.
Yep.
And it's all gone.
Yep.
Yeah. That's cool that it worked out though.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, it was good, man.
It was a fun project.
Yeah.
I'm glad we did it.
Yeah.
Cool. Well, yeah, I guess I don't know what we're going to talk about in the next podcast, but we'll figure it out.
Yeah, maybe we'll have someone on.
Yeah, that'd be cool.
Yeah.
Let's do it.
Scott's over there. Scott's running all this shit for us. He's back there. You'll meet Scott.
You're up, Scott.
Yep.
Sounds good.
All right.
Cool. All right. Well, cheers.
Cheers, buddy.